Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of The Beam on Channels Television. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the uproar caused by the quit notice given by the Ondo State government to unregistered herdsmen to vacate state forest reserves, the ultimatum has come and gone, and as it is, a meeting between governors in the Southwest and leaders of Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria are meeting in Akure as we speak. Now, mixed reactions had trailed the ultimatum, with some hailing the move and others expressing displeasure. And that will be our focus on the program today, but let's first see what made the social media trends in the past week.
Mixed reactions trail an ultimatum given to Fulani herdsmen by the Ondo State government to vacate the state following alleged cases of kidnapping, banditry and clashes with farmers in the state. While some hailed the move, others expressed displeasure, maintaining that their fundamental human right, as enshrined in the Constitution, has been trampled upon. Angry reactions have greeted the arrest of some schoolboys who allegedly identified themselves as Malians by men of Operation Amotekun in Oyo State. In a viral video circulated on social media, some of the students are seen being forced into a van of the security outfit stationed within the compound of the yet-to-be-identified secondary school. The world-renowned American veteran television presenter, radio host and journalist Larry King, after his death was announced, he was said to have died of COVID-19 complications.
Well, there you go. Those were the trends in the past week, but you can now be a part of the conversation from wherever you're watching around the world. Just tweet at us at Channels TV, at ChannelsBeam, at Vector_MBIDI. You can use the hashtag ChannelsBeam as well as the hashtag insecurity. But joining us now to look at today's topic, we have joining us from our Abuja studio, Mukhtar Modibo. He is a social development professional who has been part of grassroots campaigns in over 10 African countries. He specializes in practical issues associated with open data advocacy campaigns and development policies as it affects rural and deprived grassroots communities. Mukhtar, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you, Victor, for having me.
Indeed, you're welcome. We also have Ayodele Adio. He is joining us via Zoom. He is the managing editor of the Avalon Daily. It's a pleasure to have you on the program today, Ayodele.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Indeed. So kicks out the conversation for us, Ayodele. Over the past few days or weeks, if you like, there's been just this back and forth as to what is, who is responsible for banditry, kidnappings, rape, murder, and all of that. And as a result of that, the state government kind of gave an order. And also we had something similar in Oyo State where that has just brought about so much tension. But how do you think what is going on can be resolved for that peaceful coexistence that we've perhaps had in the past between farmers and herders can be restored?
I mean, there's a lot that needs to be done because first, this crisis has only escalated even up to the forest in the Southwest, largely because nothing was done when this crisis began in the North. I think many people even forget that this entire farmers herders crisis even started in the Northwest, and in many cases, even the Northeast, where there were skirmishes and clashes between farmers and herders that had to be settled by community chiefs over time. But because of the lack of justice, they emboldened some of these herders who had actually moved southwards, particularly to the Middle Belt areas, where they continued to trample upon farmland with impunity. It happened unabated, for several years with very little consequence. And neither did the Nigerian government over the years find a lasting solution to the crisis. And of course, because there was no solution in sight and because, punishment was not meted out on the perpetrators, we have now seen them even push further southwards with what you are now seeing in the forest in the southwest and in many cases even in some of the villages in the south and the southeast. So what you are witnessing, is a clear case of negligence from the leadership, from the Nigerian leadership over a period of time, such that it has now escalated into a full-blown crisis where you cannot have easy solutions overnight. You will need to work back to the very basics of what has fueled this crisis over a lengthy period of time, one of which is the simple fact, that the desert encroachment and the loss of land and the loss of livestock are pushing these herders further southwards in search of grazing areas. However, and more fundamentally, we need to distinguish between the categories of two of these herders. One of them are the genuine herders who are being forced southwards because of lack of resources, which is land and water, and scarcity that is forcing them southwards. But the other are a consequence of a regional crisis in the Sahel, where you have armed militia groups who are being displaced from Mali and Burkina Faso, who are finding themselves into Nigeria due to the porosity of our borders and are perpetrating all sorts of crimes and mayhem on innocent citizens. And that is exactly the problem that we should be dealing with. But unfortunately, it seems to me like we're lumping them into one group and not identifying the Fulani militia group who are pouring in from these neighboring countries, who are coming in either to launder arms, to perpetrate crimes, and to just lay siege on various communities. Because that's all they have been doing in the Sahel for a very, very long time. And the porosity of our borders have not helped. The leadership have not looked at it in a geopolitical sense to nip this crisis in the bud. And that's why we have a real problem in our hands today, because every time you hear the Nigerian government make a statement on this issue, they admit publicly that these militia groups are not from Nigeria. They are people from Mali, Chad, Mauritania, Burkina Faso. And yet it begs the question, if you know that these are foreign invaders into our country, why has nothing been done to stop this influx of these terrorist groups into our country, to strengthen our borders, and to also scale up regional dialogue within other countries, multilateral efforts to ensure that this nonsense stops? And it's because the loss of lives is unbelievable.
Let me quickly comment. Speaking about dialogue, Ayodele, we have a dialogue going on right now in Akure, the Ondo State capital. Perhaps maybe it will start from there and maybe move further. But let me quickly bring in Mukhtar Modibo, who is in our Abuja studio, to get his own thoughts on this. Mukhtar, as it is now, well, going by what I ideally just talked about now, there is a lot that is perhaps responsible for what we're facing at the moment. But in your own estimation, what do you think, or how do you think we got here, and how important do you think dialogue will be in resolving this quagmire?
So we need to really understand the fact that there is lack of trust between the citizen and the people and the government, because whenever the government come out to talk about this heather and all these things, like he rightly said, they always said this is people coming in from other countries, and then bearing in mind there is this conversation around ECOWAS that every person from the member country have the right of is their fundamental human right to move around the member state. But we also need to understand that we have a land Use Act in Nigeria, and we have the Constitution in Nigeria, and the Land Use Act, give that power to of land to the governor of that particular state. So what am I trying to say? The first thing that needs to really government need to really look at is that building the trust between the citizen and the people. If something needs to be done, then something should be done in addressing the issue of trust. If these guys are are the ones responsible in kidnapping, killing innocent people, then they should be brought to book. But we have not seen any adjudication from any court, competent court of law saying that this person has been arrested. Many people were arrested. Where are they? This same thing happens in Benue. It happens in Adamawa. It happens in a whole lot of states. But we have not seen anything that is being done to them. So the governor that is giving ultimatum for all these people to vacate the forest has the right. But the point is, we need to understand that all the Fulani herdsmen are not the ones involved in this kind of thing. So the people that are responsible in that, the government is the sole responsibility of the government to secure the land and put safety to the people. So the government needs to do something about it, not just sit down in Abuja and say, as a governor, you cannot stop people from moving around or stop Fulani herdsmen from moving around. But we should understand that the governor has the responsibility of protecting his people as the chief security of the land. Back to your question on issues of agreement. All the agreement that is being made, if that agreement is not being followed judiciously and laws are backing those agreements, the agreement will be made and be unmade. So the whole thing is we just need to build that, establish that relationship between the government and the people. And when the government says they are going to do this thing, they should do it. Waking up to breaking news on daily basis has been a normal thing in Nigeria. Waking up to people die, people lost their life just like that because of insecurity has caused a whole lot of damage to us. No investor will think of coming to Nigeria to invest. Why? Because there is no calculated risks. Why do I say there is no calculated risks? Because, you're thinking of your business being looted, or today you're thinking of yourself being kidnapped, or you're thinking of a government policy. So the whole thing is causing harm to you and I, the government and everybody. Today we're in recession, pandemic is beating us really hard, and then we're facing another issue of Fulani herdsmen, something that we can address within one policy or creating something. Victor, this is 21st century. The Fulani men need to really be kept in one place and be informed on how the world is evolving. There is no point of
Mukhtar, let me quickly comment again. I was just looking at your profile, and one of the titles you carry is, an advocacy campaigner. What is the people like you now, advocacy? Is there any move? Is there any role being played by people like you to sensitize and perhaps bring these people to the 21st century, like you just said?
Definitely there is, Victor, but there is nothing we can do when the government has no priority on that particular thing. Because whatever we're trying to do, we're supporting the government, we're supporting the people. So what we're saying is let's everybody be involved in this. Let's Nigerians and every other person begin to understand that it's not only the Fulani herdsmen that are in the bush that are bad, that are the kidnappers, or that are the ones killing the people. There are people that are just running around with their cows, just doing their normal business. And there are those ones that are killing people, kidnapping people for ransom and what have you. So let's begin to bring all these people. It will not be a bad thing if each and every Fulani man that is in Nigeria or Fulani woman that is in Nigeria is being registered. If you're coming from the borders, you should be registered. That's why we have immigration and other people in the borders, so that everything, you have a number that signify whatever you do, how you do it, whatever you are doing in that particular country that is not your country, like in a Nigerian territory, you're being monitored. So as a campaigner today, we are just calling on government and calling on people. Let's talk about reality. Let's bring these people involved. We are human beings. Those guys are also human beings. What they are trying to do is their livelihood. The whole thing is let's come together as one and move the country to the required place. So all these things cannot be done with one-sided information. That is what I'm just trying to say.
All right, while you just hold your breath there for a minute, we'll take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment to continue. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists in the Abuja studio as well as via Zoom. But let's go back to Zoom, where Ayodele Adio is standing by. He's joining us again from Lagos. Ayodele, so earlier on you talked about engaging in dialogue, to bring this crisis to an end. Like I said earlier on, there is a dialogue ongoing at the moment in Akure, the Ondo State capital, between leaders of the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria and governors of Southwest. Do you think this is perhaps a stepping stone to greater dialogues, not only in the Southwest, but, the country at large and also with other African countries, especially the ECOWAS members?
I mean, I hope so. It depends on what they are talking about or what they are discussing in that meeting. Because, listen, I totally agree with Modibu. We do not have a Fulani problem in Nigeria, as many people would like to make it seem. What we do have is a national security crisis, an almost breakdown of law and order, and a lack of capacity of the state to deal with insecurity in a large scale. And this is only worsened by a political elite that lacks a sense of urgency and imagination to tackle the issues that we deal with every single day. And hence you have all of these pockets of violence springing out across the entire country. To that extent, like I said, it depends on what the conversation, the kind of conversation that is currently taking place in Ondo. Now, if the conversation is basically superficial, you are going to come back to the same problems that we're facing in simply another week's time, because we have not solved the problem in the North Central. And if we have not solved the problem in the North Central, there's no way we can solve the problem in the Southwest and the South South with just a simple roundtable conversation. Like he rightfully said, there are certain fundamentals that must be agreed upon. And one of such fundamentals is the fact that we cannot rear cattle the same way we did in the 13th and the 14th century as we're doing today. And the facts are very simple, because there are countries like the Netherlands and Brazil that makes billions of dollars simply by exporting beef. And how do they rear their cattle? It's simply by a modernized form of ranching. These are some of the conversations, however tough and difficult, that must be on the table. The second, again, is the fact that the access to land, the access to the resources that lands carry, is not simply unilateral. Nobody has ultimate right to any to land or its resources. The only person that guarantees access to occupancy is the governor of a particular state. And the only way you can get the occupancy from that governor is by purchase or by rent of that property. And that conversation also needs to take place. Nobody is stopping anybody from legitimately acquiring land or renting any land in any part of this country to do legitimate business. So that also has to be a conversation on the table. The third and the most important conversation that must be on the table also is the porosity of our borders and the migration of people from the Sahel into our country. While the ECOWAS allows for a free movement of persons around the African region, it is also incumbent on nation states to prioritize their territorial integrity and must make priority the lives and security of their citizens. And it's very simple. When coronavirus broke out, nation states shut down their borders to protect their citizens. We also, as a country, a couple of years ago, shut down our borders because we wanted to protect local producers of rice in our country. So we cannot say that because of an ECOWAS protocol would allow people to enter our country and kill people recklessly without any form of accountability. So that has to also be on the table, where we are going to engage West African nations. In fact, I believe that Nigeria also needs to have a seat on the G5, which is the Sahel group that deals and discusses with issues in the Sahel region. We also need to engage those people to ensure that the movement of persons, particularly terrorist militia group, across the Sahel region is properly dealt with as a coordinated effort from not just West African countries, but countries in the G5 and the Sahel region, to make sure that we can nip this criminality in the bud. If these three conversations are not on the table, then what we're simply doing is playing lip service and simple sophistry that will not solve the problem. Until we tackle these issues headlong, people will continue dying every day and will simply be releasing condolences statements while people mourn.
Well, let's hope we don't get more of those deaths, and let's hope that that table will be set very soon, so that all of these things that you talked about will be tabled and also gotten to of course conclusion that will safeguard everyone, not only in Nigeria but also in other members of ECOWAS states. But I'd have to say thank you, Ayodele Adio, for joining us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Well, quickly, let me go back to our Abuja studio where Mukhtar is standing by to get the closing or the last word, so to speak. Now, Mukhtar, so moving forward, apart from dialogue, apart from all of these things that you made mention of, in a way, all of this, brought about some comments or restructuring and, whatnot. Do you think that would also be one of the solutions, quickly?
Yeah, quickly, Victor, we need to understand that the government need to understand the local problem before addressing a local solution. So I think the first thing the government need to do is to conduct a good need assessment to assess what is workable, to assess how is it working in this different state. So need assessment need to be carried along, and then people should be involved. The people in those communities should be involved so that there is going to be a confirmed local problem to be to have a good local solution, because the government cannot sit wherever they are or sit down and just make their own decision. People need to be carried along so that decision will be something they can really work with and then survive with. If not, I don't think I will align myself with what he said. We'll just sit down here and be mourning.
Well, let's hope we don't get to that part where we keep mourning, but I have to say thank you, Mukhtar, for joining us from our Abuja studio. Mukhtar Modibo, Community Engagement Officer at Connected Development. Thanks once again for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Well, that's where we are. Let's now take a look at the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week.
The arrest and parade of a police corporal and other criminals in Ondo State begins this week's most viewed videos in 5th place.
And we have arrest of another fake military personnel. We have arrest of kidnapping suspect and named Bello Ali.
Of this criminal
Ondo State's defense of their decision to ask herdsmen living in forests located in the state and faulting of the presidency's stand on the matter comes up in 4th place.
Anytime victims are kidnapped, they take them directly into the depth of the forest preserves, and security agencies have had enough evidence to show that these persons are taken into the forest. So what government is trying to do is to clear the mess.
3rd sees the Minister of Finance explaining why the government is slashing duty on imported cars from 35% to 5%.
One of the major components of the inflation is food inflation. One of the major drivers of food inflation is transportation costs. So we were looking for how to reduce the cost of transportation for the benefit of Nigerians.
While in 2nd place is the arrest of 45 more phone seekers by the Lagos State Police Command for violating COVID-19 protocols. And topping the charts is fast-rising music star Omale speaking about his arrest when he went to perform in Uganda.
I learned, it's something that I learned a lot from, and I moved past it already, so everything was looking good from the start, but it seemed like there was some kind of miscommunication with this and that.
And there you go. Those were the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week, and also that's where we dropped the anchor on the program today. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.